Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Preacher. A very good episode where we finally have the Grail and Jesse in the group clashing when they break into the house and take them down. I love that the whole thing was like, we ended up finding out her name is Featherstone. She ended up showing Hair the video of Jesse, like, oh, just look at him. He told, Tulip to go to sleep, and she went to sleep. He's like, I'm bored. Just kill him. Sent the team in, but sadly, they ended up getting decimated by a combination of Cassidy, Jesse, as well as Dennis. I felt bad for the final dude because, like, Jesse made him literally kill his friends. So that sucked. Which is kind of interesting. Just kind of a little side note. It's kind of interesting because I just finished rewatching Jessica Jones earlier today, so it's kind of interesting, Kilgrave and now Jesse. It's beside the point. But I loved how Jesse responded to this situation of, like, the moment Tulip wake up, she's like, wait, what the hell's going on? There's dead bodies everywhere. There's people coming in taking pictures of the bodies, and Jesse's talking to a whole bunch of cops. That is genius. That's so cool. Like, why put so much effort in yourself when you could get other people, when you could get the law on your side, get cops to investigate this, get forensics in here to get some fingerprints, and as well as get a cleaner in here to clean the place up and get rid of the bodies and stuff. It's such a beautiful twisted thing. I was like, that's so genius. Like that. Now that's using your noggin. I just thought that was so cool. I mean, look, sadly for him, there were no prints to be found because these guys are ghosts. So they kind of it turns out they're a pretty powerful organization. So they probably wiped themselves as well as their members from the any systems. Because we did find out more about how big this organization is. Apparently, the way Hare puts it, it's like he has groups all over like 113 different countries, and they all follow his lead. But it's incredible that the fact is he's kind of bored with it. It's just like, there's no enthusiasm to his job. He's kind of like going with the motions and stuff. Like, I do this, I do that. It seems so exciting in the beginning. It's kind of like how the feeling you get, but it's just like it's kind of dull and boring to him. So I just think that's so fascinating. Being at the top dog of an organization like this after you killed its leader and everything, and you're just kind of bored with the job almost. But I love that his whole situation all around on many different fronts. Okay, there's obviously a little bit of a problem between Jesse and Cassidy. You see it right from the beginning. Dennis is better because obviously Cassidy turned him into a vampire. But, he still holds a little grudge against Jesse because Jesse didn't do anything. It's just like, oh yeah, I guess we didn't need you after all. Kind of being a little snarky. And Jesse's kind of like, because Jesse's doing all he can to find God. He's like even going as far as watching YouTube videos because no more leads in his book. Which Cassidy's just kind of like, because, like I said, Cassie's a little pissed with him because it's like, I asked you for one thing to help out the whole Dennis situation. I had to go to the extremes that I did because you didn't want to help him. And then, Jesse's so focused on his God search, which we kind of got a little more look into that where Jesse was kind of explaining why. It's like God's missing. The fact of the matter is we need someone at the wheel. If you don't have anyone at the wheel, chaos kind of ensues and stuff like that. Once again, Cassie's kind of ignoring here. But the interesting thing about that is it kind of starts crossing my mind at what point, because I feel like that's the direction this series might end up taking. Just because of the way Jesse kind of acted with Genesis in the first season. He's kind of changed a little bit. He doesn't use it like that, but he still does to an extent. It makes me wonder at what point would Jesse be like, well, I have the word, Genesis. Do we really need God? That's immediately where my brain started going. I'm like, did we need someone at the wheel? He said someone. Almost implied like, do we necessarily? I mean, I think that might be where the direction they end up taking Jesse's character. That's always kind of a vibe I got from him, even from back in season 1, of just how far he would go with Genesis, using it for any and everything. And it seems like he's kind of doing that in this season, but once again, not helping Cassidy out with the whole Dennis situation. So obviously, there's like dissent kind of popping up. He holds like a little animosity towards Jesse, towards that, as well as the whole Tulip situation, like Tulip shooting the cleaner in this episode. But to be fair, that cleaner was acting super suspicious. I like how they framed it to make it look like that, because the entire time you're like, oh, Brad's coming. Who's Brad? Oh, they won't be able to stop Brad. Or like, oh, Brad's some like badass assassin. There's like a dude in a mask and he's attacking the couple. It's like, oh my god, is he eating them or something? It's like, oh my god, it's about to go down. It's like, oh, he's just some drunk dude. Okay. And the cleaner ended up just being a cleaner. Tulip hasn't been getting any sleep. And, Jesse actually used the word on her to make her go to sleep, which this marks the third time he's ever used the word on her. He's never even for one, he's never even used it on Cassidy that much. He's literally used it on Cassidy once. So I think that, I mean, granted, this occasion it's like, well, he wants to help her out because she can't sleep and he wants to help her sleep. I am curious though, like, I mean, because we've seen what the word can do to, like, what it did to Tracy in season 1. Like, he told her to open her eyes. She opened her eyes, but she wasn't, like, conscious. Like, it didn't change what was already there, like, but it just made, like, her body react. So the question is, like, did it put Tulip to sleep, and did she still dream? Because he asked her that question, did she dream? But she never really gave an answer. So, but at the same time too, because Jesse's mindset is like, okay, all you need is a fight. A fight will help you keep you distracted, you know. Because he's like, she had complained about earache before, and after a fight, it made everything better. So sadly, it didn't turn out to be that case. But you do see Cassidy kind of throwing shade his way. He's like, oh yeah, I'm sure Tulip will appreciate that, you know, that you feel something's coming. So also, side note, I appreciate the fact is that Brad wasn't a person. I was like, what is Brad? I was like, oh, Brad's literally a freaking drone. Okay. That, once again, kind of showing you their power. Like it doesn't seem like they're regulated by anyone. I'm curious, is the fact of the matter is, do they have members within every, like, government agency? Like, the reason why they can do what they do without, like, you know, to be able to get some hardware like that, you must have some kind of connections. Like, I feel like the government would shut you down or something. So they must have, like, some high-ranking people in the different governments who are members of the Grail, I guess. It is kind of interesting too. Tulip, like, ended up stepping on the tile in the bathroom that Jesse had hidden the cowboy's gun under. So that then kind of makes me wonder, like, is she going to be the one to find it? And what's going to happen when she finds out? Like, the fact is that it's still here will probably beg the question of Jesse. Where the hell? What? He's still around, isn't he? You know? Because I'm waiting for that too, like, to see what they do. Because I get the feeling like eventually the Grill is going to track down the cowboy. I mean, granted, setting him free won't help them one bit, because all he's going to do is, you know, kind of go nuts and kill them as well. But that does beg the question of, like, who's going to find him? Because someone's going to find him. He's not going to stay there forever. I wonder, is Jesse going to stay in New Orleans long enough until he can not only find God, but also find a way to get that piece of his soul back? And also, I'm waiting for even more so of, like, what's going to happen with that 1% of his soul that is going. I'm wondering. But immediately my brain kind of goes, not only just the whole Jesse possibly think it might get that mentality that, oh, I can be the one that kind of take the helms for God. Not only that, I started thinking, like, what if he kind of pulls a hair and takes over the Grail? I'm starting to kind of think that, because it'd help him out a lot, because he'd have, you know, a religious group beside him. He's a very religious man, and now on top of that, he has the power and resources to track down God. I mean, granted, it seems like the Grail might already know, because, like, or at the very least, they'd be able to help Jesse, because Hare has taken the interest in Jesse now because he ended up hearing what Jesse said. So I think it's specifically because the fact is why he finds Jesse interesting is because Jesse knows that God is missing. Very few people know that God's missing. We also know that they're the ones who kind of set up the whole scenario of that actor being killed so he could go to heaven to cover up everything. So, well, once again, brings up the conversation, what's their connection to heaven for them to be able to set something like that up? And do they actually have any idea where God might be? What is God doing just walking around Earth? That's still the question too. Like, what is he up to? Like, is he searching for something or what? Does he know that Genesis is on the loose? Is that what he's here for? Is he taking a stroll, or is he just kind of like, is it going to be a situation of he's like, I'm tired with the whole God thing, taking a break, you know, being the almighty and all that, just kind of wanting to come down here and chill, relax, and enjoy what I built, you know? Something like that. So, but my brain thinks, like, that's probably going to be either how the season ends or what. Is Jesse going to be Jesse taking over the Grill? That's kind of how I feel like. Probably going to pull, like, a Hare and just, like, push, well, Hare himself off a balcony and take over the group, or I don't know. Some other things I loved about this episode. One is the whole situation where Hoover and Featherstone are brought into the office, and they're like, there's a tarp being laid out, and it's like they know they're about to get killed, and Hoover's like, just what happens? He's like, I love you, and Featherstone is like, shut up. And then, like, Hare comes up and he says, like, he gets a gun ready. He's like, okay, so which one of you are first? Which one of you is first? And then Hoover's like me, and then you have Featherstone being like him, and then he kind of looks at her like, okay. The gun starts jamming though, but then Featherstone starts talking to him. It's just like, oh, let me handle that for you, sir. He starts taking the gun apart and fixing it and everything. It's like, oh, we could do this and do that. Like we can succeed this time. Oh, you didn't see the videotape, did you, sir? So it was just kind of interesting, like her being so cool and calm under pressure. I mean, we kind of understand a little bit more later on when the whole Brad is like, oh, like Hera's like, yeah, cancel the whole Brad thing. Okay, and she's calm, cool, and collected. And I love that whole like thing kept popping up. Do you like cats? No. On both their computers, on both Hera's computer as well as this one. It's like the missile is closing in. It's like, nope, I don't like cats. No. He's like, can you hurry up? And she's like so calm and cool. Because that was something I was also thinking about too. It's like, it's a drone. Aren't you guys worried about you dying? It's like, oh, Hoover is. He's like, oh, but Featherstone's like, oh, wouldn't it be so good to die for the cause? And he's like, yeah, sure would. So it shows you that he's not as deeply seated in his group as she is. I'm very interested to find out more about Featherstone and why she's so like. I mean, I guess everyone in this group is a fanatic to a certain extent. I don't think Hera is. Like I said, I think Hera's just kind of rolling the punches. Like, well, this is the group. I'm the leader of it. Got to do my job. So that was kind of interesting. And there's also still the whole Featherstone and Tulip thing. Handed her a gun this episode. So I'm curious, is it going to be a situation where that's still a possibility of like, hey, let's be friends type of deal. Hang out, get closer to him. I mean, that might no longer be necessary considering the fact is that Hera went as far as meeting with Jesse at the end of the episode. So I don't know. Another thing too is the whole like situation of like Hera setting up that rape fantasy. All I could say was, wow, okay. And it's like, no. I wanted women. And they're like, oh, no means yeah. And that turned into it was something. That's literally all I can say about it. That was something. So, still don't know what he ended up looking into Jesse's file and seeing. He ended up being like, hey, like he found the missing piece. So it's like, I guess it kind of like, Jesse was the missing piece to like whatever it is that he kind of lost doing this job for like the past, wasn't it 13 years? Yeah, because he'd start. I mean, if he did in fact start roughly around 04, like the past 13 years he's been running the organization, roughly so speaking, then maybe Jesse's the piece to kind of put things back into place or maybe help them reach their ultimate goal because he started reading more and more about Jesse and everything. So. And it was also that interesting thing at the beginning of the episode where it's like Jesse kind of reliving his dad's death. And I was like, right. I was like, I almost completely forgot about that. We still do not know who it was that actually killed his dad and why. We did see like a tattoo on the arm. I don't remember if we've seen that before. I'm curious what that's all about. But the fact is it played at the beginning and reminded Jesse to be like, oh, we need to be one of the good guys. So I'm wondering, is that supposed to play in a role in the whole, like, once again, like his soul kind of being off balance of like, he's missing a little bit of his soul and like even what that 1% will mean, you know? As I've brought it up in past episode, it's kind of like a yin yang situation that his yin and yang are off balance, you know, the good and evil in his art, you know? So, whereas most people probably like 50-50, I know some seem more so than others. I think some people were more inclined to give into their, but maybe like a little bit of his good side was gone and now like, you know, the bad outweighs the good in the sense of like a 49 to 50%, you know, type of thing. Like, once again, just elaborating like that in case you've never heard me kind of discuss that. So, situation of when he was going on a date with that governor's daughter and he had her take her top off and then put like the butter underneath her neck and he was like, how long can you hold your breath? What was that about? What was that supposed to be leading into? I'm curious. I'm wondering, is it to his whole like fantasy thing? I wonder, is that supposed to be was that supposed to be leading into that? But it's like he found out about the whole thing, the whole Hoover and Featherstone's failure, so I guess for him it's just kind of like I don't have time for this type of thing. So I'm finally, something I forgot to bring up earlier too was kind of an interesting thing. I guess we kind of found out how Cassidy kind of balances this whole hunger thing. It doesn't seem like Cassidy enjoys killing people unless they come to kill him first, but like, because he was telling Dennis like, you only drink blood when you are hurt. They help you regenerate. That's it. So it seems like a situation of like, that's Cassidy's way of kind of compensating, is like he only drinks blood when he needs to. Otherwise, I guess if you drink it more often, you're more likely to kind of give in. So maybe that's it. which the way Dennis was drinking it makes me kind of think otherwise. It seems like, once again, the conversation that came up last episode of like, oh, what is his temperament like and stuff like that. It's a question of like, what, like, you know, certain aspects of yourself once again get heightened when you become a vampire. At least that's what I'm assuming. Once again, everything's got its own, every story's got its own different circumstances when it comes to vampires and situations. So like the fact of not being able to control his own urges, once again, like I said, it seems like, you know, that probably, you know, if that's something that's about your personality, like for example, Cassidy's kind of like, the way Cassidy is it like, is that a byproduct of being a vampire, or was that just an aspect of himself, you know, that just kind of got amplified for being a vampire? That's the question you kind of have to ask, especially when it comes to this whole Dennis situation. So it's like, what kind of personality did he have from the very beginning? Did he have a very addictive personality? And so does that mean it's going to transfer over to him being bloodthirsty, you know? I'm curious to see, like, is that supposed to represent the fact is that you can't trust Dennis? Because even in this episode, Dennis has gotten the music turned up loud and everything, and he's like, you know, Jesse's telling him to turn it down. He's not listening. So is that supposed to represent showing you who he really is? The fact of the matter is he kind of does what he wants to now that he can pretty much do whatever he wants to. So probably means he will be hurting a lot of people, drawing a lot of attention to himself. I think it might be one of those situations where it's like the father will have to put an end to the son type of situation, because like Cassie might have to stop him because Dennis might go a little out of control. I don't know. We'll just kind of have to wait and see where any of that goes, as well as everything else I brought up in this episode. Overall, a very, very good episode. I'm not sure if next week's episode is the season finale or not. Last season was 10 episodes long, so I'm not sure if they're keeping up with that, or whether or not this season's a little bit longer, or whatever the case may be. So either way, whether it is or isn't, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what goes on in, you know, the next episode. So, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.